All right, brothers and sisters, aloha. It's great to be here with you. It's my privilege to introduce Elder Doug Speirs and Sister Carol Speirs. I know you're well acquainted with them throughout this course. I just want to make this a little personal and share with you this process of how we find these amazing entrepreneurs in residence. So if I could go back in time. Maybe I won't go back in time. It was working just a minute ago. Oh, can you press the space bar? Oh. Now it's really not happy. This is how technology works at BYU Hawaii. Hold on one second. Oh, it works now, okay. So, I don't know if you know this, but we have people who come here, they teach classes, they mentor, they work with students, and we don't pay them a dime, right? And finding people who are willing to do this is pretty hard. On top of this, finding good people is even harder. And as we look at this need for a mentor, I worry that you guys have been taught that you need to find someone who is like CXO title, CEO, CFO, COO. And the real secret is you just need someone who's like a little farther ahead than you are, whether it's an apprentice or a journeyman, in some cases, a master. And a mentor is going to make, whoa, you got a haircut. A mentor is going to make all the difference in the world, right? Because the reason why is these people have a little bit more experience, a little bit more of a perspective of what's good for you, but most importantly, they really care about you. And I won't say how many years ago, but a while back, I met Doug, Elder Speirs, and he was known as an expert mountain climber. And I really had this huge goal. I wanted to climb the Grand Teton. It's almost 14,000?
Yep. 14,770 feet.
Whoa, it's like, okay, over 14,000 feet tall, one of the tallest mountains in the Rockies. And Doug was working with my dad. He said, this is a guy you can trust. And Doug led myself and my brothers safely to the top of this mountain. But more than that, I think Doug really inspired me to do things that I normally wouldn't try to do. And I think I shared this story once before. I'll just share it again real quick. I remember being up near the top around 13,000 feet. My two brothers, they're on the right. They're identical twins. They got elevation sickness, and they were like done. They're like, Jason, this was like one of those Nephi moments, right? They're like, we are not doing this, and you cannot make us do this, and we don't care what you say. And I remember getting really mad and just like saying, look, if you don't finish this now, you are going to regret this the rest of your life. And it was one of those like those turning points, I think, where it got them just angry enough to keep going and prove that they could do it. And if you were to walk into one of my brother's offices today, this is the first picture you would see on that wall, right? Like they are so glad they did this thing. And as you think about this entrepreneurial experience, I can't think of a better metaphor than climbing a mountain. You need a really good guide, you need a team, and you need someone who's going to inspire you when things get difficult. And as I look at the life of Elder and Sister Speirs, I think this is a great example of people who've been faithful. They've got 6 kids between the two of them, 20 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren. And over the last couple of months, they've brought them to the island. You look into their eyes, and these are kids who, they love their parents, they love their grandparents. And we're just so blessed and grateful to have them here. And I'd like to have you help me welcome them to speak now. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to kind of shut that a little bit. Okay. Oh, boy.
I have to tell you, this is way out of my comfort zone. I have been scared to death. In fact, when Jason told us that we had to speak, I ran home, put it on my calendar that I was going to be sick today. But, well, you can see how that worked out. Here I am, unfortunately. When I was young, I was taking dancing lessons, and it was my first solo. And as the curtain went up and the music started, my mind went totally blank. I mean, I couldn't remember a thing. I kept looking over at my teacher, and she's off on the side trying to help me remember my dance, and to no avail. There was nothing there. So I did a couple of probably weird steps that weren't even considered dance steps and exited off the stage as fast as I could. So if you see this blank look come over my face, and I do a couple of funny steps and sit down, you'll know what happened. You won't be surprised, and Brother Speirs can take over from there. So this is not going to be a talk about claim to fame or how to get rich. It's just going to be a little bit of about us and what we teach in the class. So Brother Speirs and I have been married 9 years in July, this July. As Jason said, we have 6 children between us, 3 girls and 3 boys. We have 20 grandchildren that we adore and love, and 3 great, beautiful grandchildren. We reside in Idaho Falls, Idaho in the summer, and then we go to St. George, Utah in the winter. Our hobbies include skiing, biking, hiking, and golfing, and golfing, and golfing. Brother Speirs and I met at a singles book club. My sister-in-law and I decided that we were going to put on this book club to help pass the long, cold winter days in Idaho. And as usual, all single things that go on with people our age, there's always a lot more women than there are men. So when Doug entered the building, all the women's ears just perked right up, including mine. And so after the evening, we had a great time. After the evening ended, my sister-in-law asked us if anybody would like to stay and play games. And so Doug offered to stay and play. So of course I was like, yeah, I want to stay too. So we had a great evening. Well, the next day, Doug called me and asked me if I watched American Idol. And I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, can I bring some food over and watch American Idol with you? And I was like, sure. And so he said, well, I've got some clam chowder. And I said, I hate clam chowder. But I was so excited that he was coming over, I could care less. And the minute he hung up, I called my girlfriends, and I was like, yes, he called me. So it doesn't change if you're 16 or if you're 60. It still works the same. The only difference is when you're 16, you have to ask your parents what time to come in. When you're 60, you get to ask your kids what time you have to come in. So that's how we met, and that's the story of our life. So as you figured out, we got married, and 9 years later, here we are serving at BYU, Hawaii, under the direction of Jason Earl. We were assigned to teach a leadership class and a lecture series, and be in charge of the lecture series, and this is the book that we teach out of. It's called Lessons from Great Lives by Dan McCormick. And if any of you have not seen this book or have not read this book, I highly recommend the book. It's an amazing book. It's about lives of great men and women who, against all odds and all sorts of hardships, became famous people, leaders such as Benjamin Franklin, Joan of Arc, Leonardo da Vinci, Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi, Madame Curie, and many, many more. Another aspect that we talk about in our class is the miracle of personalities. All of the powers of memory, reflection, intelligence, ambition, enthusiasm, and love are placed under the command of your personality. Wealth cannot create personality, but personality can create wealth. Let me tell you that one more time. Wealth cannot create personality, but personality can create wealth. The book is more than just about great lives. It's about knowledge, attitude, skills, habit, and your personality. So take a minute, buy the book, read it. It may change your life forever. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about my life experiences, and I hope that it will kind of fit in to the class that we teach. I was born in Twin Falls, Idaho, was raised in Buell, Idaho, to goodly parents. I had an older brother and an older sister. We were just a normal family. My father worked at the lumber yard. He was a member of the J.C.'s, and he was the ward clerk. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. When I turned 6 years old, my sister was 8, my brother was 14. My mother and my father, my mother, my father, my uncle and aunt, and my cousin and her husband of 1 week were killed by a drunk driver. Their bodies were burned beyond recognition, and it was probably one of the worst accidents in the state of Idaho for a very, very long time. So because there was no will, the judge ordered us to go live with an aunt and an uncle who were living in Driggs, Idaho. They had 1 daughter. This was not a Cleaver Beaver family. They were both alcoholics. They were very physically and mentally abusive to all of us. So my goal was to just get graduated and get out of there as fast as I could. I left when I was 18 years old, went to Weber State to attend college in Ogden, Utah, and was living there when I married my high school sweetheart and was expecting our first child when my husband was called to serve in the Vietnam War for 1 year. Now, I have a very great, deep, and abiding love for the flag. And when I put my hand over my heart, sometimes it brings tears to my eyes. And I believe that it comes from the fact that there are many young men and women, like my husband, who were willing to give up a year of their lives to serve their country. 6 years and 2 more children later, we got a call from his father asking us to come back to farm with his 2 brothers. Now, my husband had just finished his apprenticeship in plumbing, but his love for farming was much more stronger than his love for the plumbing. So away we went to Teutonia, Idaho. We built our home in Teutonia, Idaho, and resided there for quite a few years. It was probably the best move that we ever made in our life. My children loved the farm, I loved the farm, and it was a great, great life. When my oldest daughter turned 18 and was ready to head off to Utah State School, my middle daughter was 14, my youngest daughter was 8. My husband was driving his combine across Canyon Creek Bridge. We farmed on both sides of the bridge. A young man on drugs in a truck came along, hit my husband's combine, shoved it over the canyon. He was dropped 150 feet below, and he ran away from the scene of the accident. The life flighted my husband to Idaho Falls, Idaho, where he later passed away. And that was the beginning of some of the darkest days of my life. 2 years later, my oldest daughter married her high school sweetheart, was expecting her first child, when my son-in-law went out into the pasture to check on his father and found him dead due to a farming accident. So those were some very difficult and hard times for our lives. Fast forward 2 years later, the principal of the high school asked me if I would be the advisor for the drill team. Now, this was not your average drill team, okay? We were known all over the state of Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming for our excellence. We had performed at Utah State, BYU, Idaho State, and was asked to perform at the World's Fair. Every competition that we ever entered, we took first place. We were amazing. In our leadership class, we asked the students to give a 3 to 5 minute presentation on someone who has affected their lives in some way or someone who is very important to them. We have heard about fathers, we've heard about mothers, we have heard about brothers, mission presidents, we have even heard about actors, painters, and wrestlers. And if I were to talk about someone in my life who had affected me in that way, it would be my teacher for the drill team. She was very, very strict. We met 3 mornings every week at 6 o'clock in the morning. There was no nonsense, no talking. We were there to work hard so that we could keep up to our reputation that we had. But as we talked in our class, too, she was also very loving and very kind. I spent many, many times in her office in the morning when things were not going well at the home that I was living in, and I knew that she loved me and cared for me with all her heart. But as she grew older, she retired, and when she retired, the drill team went downhill very, very fast. So my first thought as I decided to take this job was that I wanted to be her. She was my role model. She was my mentor. Whoops, something that we talk about very much in our class. I ran the team just the way that she did, hard work and no nonsense. I did get a lot of calls from parents saying that I was working the girls way too hard, but I just ignored it and went on the way and did it my way. We went to our first competition in Boise, Idaho, and took home first place in all 3 categories that we entered. We also took all first place in the overall categories, beating out 40 other teams from all over Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming. Now, I can't say that it was all my doing, because the girls, the kids, they were so dedicated. They were the meat of what made us win, and I loved them, and they knew that. There is a saying that goes like this: the biggest gift anyone can give is their love, and the second one is their labor. Combined, these two are a powerful force that turns teammates into superstars and individual into life-fulfilling souls, and I believe that. I worked with the girls for 6 years, and we continued to win wherever we went. Fast forward to Salt Lake City, Utah. I used to drive by this beautiful reception center I'd ever seen, and I used to go there and just walk on the grounds because it was so gorgeous. And lo and behold, one day while I was walking there, there was a sign up for a position as the director of this center. My first thought was, I want that job. Well, you have to remember, I only went to 2 years of college. I had no business degree, but I applied for the interview, took the interview, and guess what? I got the job. I was probably as surprised as they were that I got the job, but I went home that night and I started to second guess myself. I thought, what if I can't do the job right? What if he doesn't like what I do? All sorts of negative thoughts entered my mind, and I actually talked myself out of the job. The next day, I called and turned the job down. One of the things that I regret most in my life. Someone once said, the greatest fault in human beings is that we underestimate ourselves. It is hard to have faith in ourselves, and I was that person, and I regret it to this day. Fast forward to Idaho Falls, Idaho. A job opening for the floor designer at Ashley Furniture was available. So now again, remember, I have no degree in interior design, but I love to decorate and I love to shop. So I went and interviewed for the job, and I got the job. Loved my job. That first year, I decorated the model homes for the parade, and we won all the first place trophies. So I felt like I did a good job, but it was one of my favorite things that I ever did, and I loved it. And I continued to work there for about 6 years. So the moral of my talk is this: almost every one of you in this room are going to have hardships. Some of them may be harder than others. Some of them won't be as hard, but everyone will have it at some time in their life. Some of you are going to go on to be very successful right off the bat when you graduate. Some of you, it will take longer, and some of you will have many failures before you become successful. But don't give up. Life is hard, it really is, but if you keep your focus on what you want, you will succeed, and I believe that with all my heart. I have loved teaching here at BYU, Hawaii. It has been one of the greatest experiences that I can ever say that I have ever had. When I first got the assignment for this job and Jason told us that we were teaching a college class, my first thought was, I've taught primary. How can I possibly relate to these students in college? But you know what? it was very easy. You are the most loving, humble, sweet, kindest people that I have ever met. And if any of you in this class here today I have taught, I hope you know that you have filled my heart with blessings and love. You have given me so much that I will never, never, never regret. And I hope that sometime, somewhere in the class, I touched your heart like you touched mine. And I say this humbly in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Okay, now you see why I married her at 60, right? Excuse me. So, our story is a little different than yours, as you can tell. A lot of it has to do with our age, right? I mean, I graduated from high school in 1967. When was the first laptop computer? When did it first, or not laptop, when was the first desktop computer come out? You have any idea? Who knows? The first desktop came out in 1975, but it really wasn't, I mean, it wasn't commonly used. It was just the first introduction. I was out of high school by then, right? So when was the first smartphone? When did the first smartphone come out? 2001. The iPhone, the first iPhone, the advertisement for the first iPhone came out in 2007. I mean, that's basically, what, 10, 11 years ago. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the things that we had, that we used to make us succeed were different than what you have. And you have such a greater opportunity to information and to succeed just based on the information that you have at your hands right now. So there's great opportunities out there. I know a lot of you in the entrepreneurship classes are being taught that, but I want you to recognize that fact. And so when Sister Speirs and I talk, we're obviously old school. I didn't have a computer in my home, until probably in the 1980s. But I mean, that was before some of you were born, right? So what's the point? I don't know. Anyway, what I want to do is just talk to you a little bit about some of the things that I think made me have some success in my life. It was different than you. However, let's see if this is going to work for me. There we go. So. So the point I want to make in my talk here is to tell you to get out of your comfort zone. We all have places of comfort, right? But in order to succeed and to grow and to move forward, we have to force ourselves out of that comfort area. So I want to talk to you a little bit about getting out of your comfort zone. As Dr. Earl said that I've loved mountain climbing all my life. I'm not going to talk about that, but I've got a couple of pictures that says something to me, because I've been in situations where I'm very uncomfortable doing something that I love to do. But each time I got into that area where I was very uncomfortable, I learned something. And so that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. So I want to talk just a little bit about the comfort zone versus the growth zone, okay? So the comfort zone, approximately 80% of the people kind of reside in that comfort zone, right? They get out once in a while, but it's there's a challenge there. It makes them feel kind of uncomfortable, so they kind of slip back into their comfort area. But staying outside of your comfort zone promotes growth and provides experience. Those who are willing to take risks and step out of their comfort zone and into discomfort of uncertainty will be those that reap the biggest rewards. And I found that to be very true in my own life. So I'm going to take you back to 1958. Uh-oh. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. I'm going to take you to my comfort zone. This is where, a lot of us like to reside. That's our little comfort zone there. And as you all know, you can't just sit there and enjoy that forever. So it's nice to slip back into your comfort zone once in a while and relax, but don't live there. That's the point I want to make here. If you're in the comfort zone, my computer just died on me, so sorry. It's a safe place to be. But I want to encourage you to go into your discomfort zone where it's the growth zone. There's challenges, there's learning new skills, gaining experience, and that's where the opportunities are. And that's what I found in my life. That's where my opportunities came from, is being outside of my comfort zone. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about 1958. This picture here is not really me, but it could be. It could be me and a group of my friends. The point for me is I always loved to build things. And so we used to go to the local junkyard all the time and pick up parts and pieces of old baby buggies and whatnot and build these cars just like that. But I really had an interest in that sort of thing. And so I looked for opportunity at a young age to learn how to continue to pursue my interest in that. And so it wasn't until I was 15 years old, I got a job in a local machine shop, and all I was doing was sweeping the floors, and I was cleaning up the metal shavings that collected underneath the machines. But it exposed me to an environment that I found out that I was really fascinated with. I was fascinated with the fact that I watched these men take a block of steel and turn it into a part by putting it in a lathe, turning it, drilling holes, milling machines. Some of these terms you might not understand, but at that time it was a manual way of making a part out of a solid block of steel. But I was fascinated by that. And but I was also fascinated with the fact that they were working off of a blueprint or a piece of paper, that they could read that and figure out, how to make that. And so as I hung out in that machine shop, I told the owner one day, I said, I want to learn how to operate these machines. And remind you, I was 15, and he just kind of looked at me and laughed, and he said, maybe when you're older, but not now. But he encouraged me to continue to learn, and so he gave me some blueprints, and he kind of taught me a little bit about how to read them and that sort of thing. So I took these blueprints home, and I had them in my bedroom, and I kind of became familiar with how to read a blueprint and that sort of thing. But because I was a little persistent talking to the machinists and trying to pick their brains and figure out how they operated that equipment, and the interest I showed, that manager came to me one day after one summer. I think I was 16 or so, still in high school. They had a big order, and he asked me if I could, thought I could operate a drilling machine. So of course I said yes. What else would you say, But that was my first opportunity there. but it was a very uncomfortable position to be in. But it was a learning experience. And so for me, that was the thing that really helped me move forward. So my interest still lied in that area. And there's a couple of things I want to tell you about. In Idaho Falls area, the place I was working was a little local machine shop. And if you lived in Idaho Falls, the goal was to, if you didn't have the opportunity to go to college, which I didn't at that time, my goal was to get working for the Idaho National Laboratory. And so I found an opportunity come up, applied for the job, and I moved to the Idaho National Laboratory, and I was working as a machinist. And at that time, I was the youngest person in a group of 50 or 60 machinists. And in that environment, I was very uncomfortable because there was equipment in there that I'd never seen before. There was measuring tools in there that I'd never seen before. And I was expected to know all that. And so, again, I had to push myself a little bit into an area that I felt very uncomfortable with, but was able to, learn how to do that and measure to very precision. And but this is what one day. This was in 1975. So we talked about the fact that laptop computer came out in 1975. About the same time, the first computer-controlled equipment came out. And computer-controlled equipment, there's a person that writes a program, and that's loaded into the equipment, and then the machining is done automatically. And so our boss at that time, he came and he told us that they were going to buy some equipment, and he asked if anybody was interested in learning how to operate and program this equipment. And mind you, I'm the youngest guy in the shop. And so I waited for a few moments, and a lot of the other people, or nobody volunteered. So immediately my hand shot up, and I said, yes, I want to learn how to do this. So why didn't they take that opportunity? And, obviously, it's because they were uncomfortable. They were very comfortable being in that environment that they were in. They didn't want to really advance or learn anything new. So the point I'm trying to make is we need to get out of our comfort zone once in a while to learn and succeed. So, what happened was, because of my curiosity, I was able to get on my first plane ride, fly to California, go to this school to learn how to program and run these machines. And so when I came back, I think I'm 25 years old then, and I was considered the expert at the Idaho National Laboratory in computer-controlled machining. And it wouldn't have happened if I would have, not gotten out of my comfort zone. So, that was an opportunity that presented itself to me by being willing to take some risk. Now, there's different risks that everybody has to be comfortable with taking, but for me, I was just trying to learn in my trade and grow further. The next opportunity came was I heard about a classified project that was going on, and I didn't really know much about it, but I decided I'd apply for a job in this classified project. So I went to the interview, and the individual I interviewed with, I asked him a few questions. First, I asked him, I said, well, what are you making? And he says, well, I can't tell you. And I said, well, is it big? Or is it little? Or is it highly precise? You know, it's kind of trying to figure out if I wanted to change a very comfortable job that I had and do something that I had no idea what it was. And so I was trying to feel him out a little bit. And he just kept telling me, I can't tell you. You know, this is classified, I can't tell you. And so I felt like I needed to pray about it. And of course I did that. But I remember when I walked away from that interview, he did tell me one thing that really stuck with me. And he said, how he worded it, he said, only thing I can tell you is this, is that your skill set is exactly what we need. And so that kind of encouraged me to think, okay, the things that I had stretched myself to learn and grow, I'll probably be able to continue using in this position. And so I accepted that job. And I got a little, not knowing what it was, I got a little video here that I want to show you. Is it gonna run? Okay, it's a really short little video, but you know, what I found out when I got into that position was simply that we were building tank armor. And I had no idea what it was, but to me, that it was the highlight of my career. I worked on that project for almost 20 years. And the interesting thing that happened, I started there in 1986. In 1991 was the first Gulf War. And I still get chills when I think about it. And you know, this might not mean a lot to a lot of you, but when I look at that tank, it's like, to me, that's my baby, you know, and you know, we only worked on part of it, but that was kind of the thing that really gives me chills. But I can tell you that it was put to the test, and I was so proud to talk to some of the tank commanders when they came back and reported back to our site to give thanks to some of the employees that worked there. And so this, to me, is just a reward for taking a risk. So the test was this: in the largest U.S. tank battle since World War II, on February 26, 1991, 12 Abrams A1M1 tanks charged out of a sandstorm and destroyed 28 Iraqi tanks, 16 personnel carriers, and 30 trucks in less than 30 minutes. I mean, that's war, right? It's sad in some ways, but I felt honored to be part of that project, and I feel honored today when I watched the video. But it wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have been able to, you know, take some risks and move outside of my comfort zone. But believe it or not, I worked there for almost 20 years, and I became kind of tired of that. I got where I felt comfortable again, and I just knew that I had to move on. And so I got the opportunity to move into a position that was manager of prototype engineering at the Idaho National Laboratory. And that's when I ended my career there. But through all those experiences I had, the one key factor that always came back that proved to me that we all can be successful is stay outside your comfort zone and look for opportunities to grow. And I think you can all find that if you look for it. That's really all I wanted to tell you is that today. And as Sister Speirs said, we really appreciate the opportunity to be here. We've enjoyed it. We hope that you've learned from the entrepreneurs that have spoken in this class. We've enjoyed being over and responsible for. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity that we've had. And I'd like to say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, so I guess we've got to, thank you very much. I think we've got an opportunity for questions. If anybody wants to ask Sister Speirs, if you want to come up here. No? If you have any questions, you can ask. If not, it's fine. We'll remind you that there's luncheon down the hall. If you have, time to come down there and visit with us some more, that'd be great. So, the keyword's on the board. So is there?
Jason, of course, has a question.
Oh, Jason.
What's the biggest thing you learned from 2 semesters and all these entrepreneurs coming through in the lecture series?
What did he say? The biggest question? What?
Oh, the thing that we've learned?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question.
Teaching the class, you mean?
No, from the entrepreneurs, right?
Oh, the thing that I've learned from the entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
how smart you are. How amazingly smart you are. I'm just blown away at how smart they are. And I like I said before, I believe that you will succeed because your level of smarts is way above mine. So that's what I've learned.
Well, I think I've learned the fact that failure's okay. We all get opportunities, or we all get times where, we're going to fail at something, but don't give up. Just keep moving on. And so, yeah, Paul.
So I have a question for Carol. You briefly highlighted on your aunt and uncle and your situation going in there. It sounded like a very rough time, but we see the outcome of it 40 plus years later. What do you attribute, if you could have easily gone a different path in such an abusive environment, what were some of the things that helped you get through that time?
Well, for one was my mentor. She helped me believe in myself, I think, mostly. And then my children, my family, the gospel. After my husband died, I had a hard time, a pretty difficult time with my Heavenly Father for a while, because my husband was the good son. His 2 brothers were not, so to speak, and I struggled with that. And I think when I decided I needed to forgive and forget and move on, I think that's what helped me with my life, the gospel, for sure. So keep it in your life forever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.